I am very excited to introduce our next panel on sustainable cities. We have Jen Crozier, Vice President of IBM Global Citizen Initiatives, Stefan Dujarric, spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Oliver Libby, founding partner and managing director at Hatzimemos Libby, and our moderator, Penny Abeywardena, Commissioner for International Relations for the City of New York. Please join me in welcoming them.
So I'm Penny, and I'm in fact not moderating.
Yes, we've decided to switch roles. I've decided to take over and moderate. Welcome to all of you. You know, at the UN, a lot of stuff's happening downtown. We, as you all know, we just adopted the new roadmap to fight poverty, the Sustainable Development Goals. A big part of that, obviously, is looking at cities and urban areas. And I want to start off our conversation about poverty. If the subway that runs under this building, if you go from 77th up 6 stops, you have one of the widest income gaps in the United States, right here in this city. So as we look to solutions for sustainable cities, how do we make sure the poorest are not left behind? Maybe, Jen, if we can start with you.
Sure, absolutely. So, first of all, it has to start in cities. Everybody knows the statistics, half of the world's population there and growing. And I think that that's the place to start the dialogue, and by asking them and by getting them involved. We have a program at IBM where we send teams of people out to cities. And one city that we've worked with is Porto Alegre, Brazil, where they do participatory budgeting with the poorest in the city. And Mayor Fortunati and the leaders before him have made huge changes in the way they deliver services, education, healthcare to the poor. They were doing that by going out door to door and talking. But when you invoke technology and social media and you're able to have that kind of multifaceted dialogue, huge changes have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about energy. I think we are seeing an interesting time in history. We started hundreds of years ago when cities were aggregating by having energy be generated in homes with fires and that sort of thing. And we went towards a consolidation with large power plants. But now, today, we're getting to a point where I think we're seeing solar, we're seeing microgrids, we're seeing much more distributed technologies that are going to allow people, even, for example, you see these visuals of power lines right near slums like Kibera in Kenya, but now we're going to be able to, I think, microgrid that and bring power back into those regions and cities.
Right.
So, you know, the UN voted on the Sustainable Development Goals just Friday. And one of the things that the mayor did, Mayor Bill de Blasio here in New York City, is we launched our One NYC, our 20-year development plan for New York City on Earth Day. And one of the things that we uniquely did is look at sustainability and resiliency with our equity agenda in mind. And with that lens, we ended up having a very parallel plan for our local communities with what the Sustainable Development Goals are trying to achieve globally. And when you look at technology, that is sort of one of the key tools in how we're looking to address our equity issues here in New York City. So, you know, one of our key programs within technology or to address the digital divide it's called Link NYC, and we're looking to take all of the payphones around New York City and all the 5 boroughs and make them secure, high access or fast access Wi-Fi hotspots. Just about 2 weeks ago, education is core to the technology conversation. Yeah. And in the next 10 years, all New York City school children, which means about 1 million kids in about 1,800 public schools, will receive computer science. And so that becomes core to how we address the poverty question long-term with technology.
But let me push you a bit on this, because we talk a lot about technology to fight poverty. But is there an extra effort to be made to reach those communities who don't have the basic technological tools, right? I mean, you talk about technology, but they don't have an iPhone. They may not even be connected to the grid, right?
We have a tendency to think about technology as the iPhone or the laptop. Right. The Internet of Things changes all of that, right? So now when we have technology embedded into our, fuel, into the way we get energy, or we're starting to put it in the hands of midwives who do home visits, right? So they know protocols to see when a mother has HIV, and to get ahead of it so that you don't have mother-to-child transmission. That wasn't happening before. So there's whole new leaps that are possible in the last mile.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things we've seen is the enormous penetration of cell phones. It doesn't need to be an iPhone, right? But one of the cool projects I heard of in Nairobi, there was something called the Digital Matatu program. So 3.5 million Kenyans in Nairobi depend on these basically vans to get around. It's kind of an informal taxi service. This program mapped and is accessible to everyone who needs it. The Matatu routes where there's high crime, where there's not. So it was a great example of technology being really at the level that you're talking about, very useful.
Right. Now, Jen, you'd start off talking about the I think 118 cities IBM is involved in, which really, I want to talk a bit about lessons learned. What, for you, I mean, you've seen a lot of these projects. What's the best case? What's your best test case that you've seen?
Right. So just as background, we invited all mayors around the world to say, if you had a team of 6 IBM experts for 3 weeks, what would you have them do? And we've had over 700 mayors apply for this grant. And our best case scenarios are the mayors who are there who give us a really juicy topic, something that involves multiple systems that they're really struggling to solve. We have teams today in both Detroit, Michigan, and Allahabad, India. Just coincidentally, both teams are dealing with blight and municipal waste management and how you use technology there. It's not a very sexy topic, but it is hugely, critically important to the quality of life of the citizens of their cities. So I think those are scenarios where we know it's going to make a material impact.
Now, Penny, I won't argue, New York is the greatest city in the world.
Yes, it
we
is.
all know
Thank
that.
you.
But even the greatest can learn.
Absolutely.
Has New York
Absolutely.
looked at other cities and learned from them?
Absolutely. I run the mayor's office for International Affairs, and one of the key mandates that the mayor had when he appointed me for this is how does New York City become that place where we are the capital of the world, largely due to our physical space. We host the UN, so many diverse communities, but what does it look like when we invest in ideas and that exchange in terms of partnership and collaboration? So, New York City's effort around reducing pedestrian deaths, it's called Vision Zero. It's the reason we have more bike lanes and, walking spaces in Times Square. That was directly emulated from a program in Stockholm. And so that exchange of best ideas is really is very core to how New York City is going to be present as the capital of the world in a certain sense. Another thing in terms of that exchange of ideas is New York City's municipal ID. So this is a core piece of the mayor's administration in terms of policies, is to ensure that all New Yorkers, irrespective of their documentation status, has access to an identification card that allows them to pick up their kids from school, access city services. And it has been extraordinarily popular here. We have been talking to other cities about it. And Paris, under the leadership of Mayor Anne Hidalgo, is now going to be replicating that program in Paris. So, there's that cycle of ideas exchange that's happening right now.
And Oliver, let me ask you something. Your focus is energy. Are there places, cities in the developing world that have kind of leapfrog over the kind of old energy infrastructure that we have in the developed world and that we could learn from?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a well-known challenge, right? When you have a well-developed city, the infrastructure is in place, and it's sometimes hard to get the new infrastructure because it's kind of blocked by the legacy infrastructure. So I mentioned Nairobi. I think also Johannesburg have some great examples of, for example, using compressed natural gas, reducing the carbon footprint of just basic activities in the city. And I think one thing we talked about earlier that was really exciting is just writ large, more than energy. One thing we see through the Resolution Project, which is the charity that I co-founded, is cities really being an incubator for new ideas. Young people coming up with great micro projects, and then we can help them scale. And that's been a very exciting thing, which I think gives us the opportunity side of the coin rather than the challenge.
One of when we talk about sustainability, we talk about energy, but I want to touch a bit about food. Is that something that, let's say, IBM has looked at in terms of urban agriculture and sustainability on food?
Yeah, absolutely. So both definitely in the developing world, thinking about more efficient and sustainable models of farming, but also in Milwaukee, unexpectedly, they came and said, we want to be Fresh City, we want to grow more local produce. By the way, we have all of these abandoned warehouses in our downtown that we're trying to figure out what to do with. And so they looked at urban aquaponics and how do you grow fresh produce and create that so that you can avoid food deserts, deal with your warehouses downtown, and solve multiple problems.
it's actually goes back to the circularity I mentioned before. You used to grow your own food in a plot years and years and years ago.
Right.
Then you had, Walmart came in. Now, I mean, George, the co-founder of Resolution's out there somewhere. He's a member of a farm here in Queens, where people are actually bringing subsistence farming in a certain sense back to the urban environment, and that's super exciting, I think.
Exactly.
Last word, Penny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on the food question, I will say that is something that is a priority. We actually have a food policy expert in the administration that's working on it. And what's really exciting, there is the Food Expo in Milan right now, and there are hundreds of mayors from around the world that are actually going to be signing a food pact around food security issues to ensure that urban farming is going to be a priority, and getting healthy food to all neighborhoods is a priority.
Excellent. We're 5 seconds over. Penny, Oliver, Jen, thank you all very much, and thank you.